And good evening. It is Car Con Carne, still doing the show from home in quarantine. Car Con Carne, sponsored by C&H Financial Services. As business owners continue to try and figure out how to move forward because of the coronavirus, C&H Financial Services is here to help. They offer a variety of products ranging from traditional merchant accounts to a zero-cost payment processing solution, which eliminates the expense associated with accepting Visa, MasterCard, Discover, and American Express as a form of customer payment. C&H Financial Services eTab solutions, easy to set up for your business for online ordering and curbside pickup. C&H also offers cost-effective commercial lending programs, which can help get your business the money it needs to make it through these unprecedented times. To learn more, contact C&H Financial Services at 855-600-2437 or go to chfs.us. My guest today, it is a delight to talk to this man. He is Steve Kilbey. You know him from the church. You know him from solo music. You know him from being one of the most prolific songwriters on the planet. Good afternoon, Steve.
How you going?
Good. You know, when I think of the church, when I listen to the church, I think of these meticulously produced soundscapes. And here we are in 2020. Your new solo album, 11 Women, it's raw, it's immediate. This is a product of the times, isn't it?
Well, I've always felt like if I'm going to do something that's not the church, I've got to sort of try and make it as different to the church as I can. Definitely the church is meticulous, and definitely this new album is not meticulous. So well spotted.
So 11 Women. Let's talk about these women. Poppy Byron, Aberdeen, Baby Poe, Doris McAllister. Are these real life muses?
They're all composites. They're all to a certain extent. It's sort of like in the Bible, you get your Adam and Eve. Are they real people, or are they symbolism of people, or are they ideas, or what are they exactly? You never really know. And I try and keep the songs like that, which is very frustrating when you're doing an interview and someone says, does Poppy Byron exist? She exists in a song, and she exists as a composite, and she exists as an idea, as an actual woman on my phone who I can ring up and say, hey, Poppy Byron, what are you doing today? No. But, you know, in some senses, an idea or a thought is more real than reality. So once, like, say 1,000 people have bought this record and they're all thinking about Poppy Byron, she's sort of starting to take a shape. And if people go on listening to that record, say after I'm dead, then she's, you know what I mean? So it's all relative. And because I write, my sort of specialty is ambiguity. It's very hard to sort of answer questions like that. But yeah, to me they're real. To me I see them. I've pulled them out of the inchoate wilderness where they were, and I've sort of assembled them like Frankenstein and given them music and put words in their mouth. And you know, the album cover has a face of a woman, every woman, all women, sort of with the fish eyes and all of that. So yes, she exists in many senses.
Well, you mentioned Frankenstein. Let's talk about Poppy Byron. Mary Shelley was watching her telly.
Yeah.
You put your rhyming talents to work on that one. Shelley, telly, belly, jelly. I think Smelly, was Smelly included? That might be the only one you missed.
Smelly. Oh, yeah. No, I didn't get smelly in there. Smelly's not a good word, is it?
No, like, perhaps not.
Almost any word is you can use in a song, but smelly, you've got to go, smelly ain't going to work there.
Unless it's for a kid's song.
It works for kids. Do you know, there was a guy in the Australian music business. His name was Michael Smelly. That's a harsh name to grow up with, isn't it? It makes me glad I'm Kilby. I used to hate my name at school because everyone called me Killer. And of course, I was the least, you know, that would have been good if I had been a killer. But seeing I was a little 10-pound weakling getting sand kicked in my face, so the killer had this awful irony to it. You know what I mean? Hey, killer, And it's like, who obviously isn't a killer. But when I met Michael Smelly, I was glad I was Killer Kilby and not Smelly.
See, and you grew up to absolutely slay live performances. See how it all came together for you? You're a killer on stage.
There you go. You know, I was overcoming my basic inadequacy as a child by overreaching to try and become a rock star, I guess. I thought people would love me, but they didn't. They just made them hate me more. Some of them anyway.
Sticking on 11 Women for a second. I love the rawness, like Woman Number 9. That's a garage rock song.
Absolutely. It is garage. It was a, you know, you look at when you're having a process, and my process was I had a studio for 3 days because that's all I could afford to do this on my own. And so then you go, well, if I've got a studio for 3 days, surely one of the attributes I'm going to inculcate in the music is rawness. It has to be.
Yeah.
If you're sitting there with 3 days and you're going to make a whole album and you're going, I'm going to be meticulous and careful and everything's going to be, you can't do it. So obviously, 11 Women, Woman Number 9 is very raw, and it's definitely a garagey tune. But in the chorus, it stops being quite so garagey and sort of turns into more of a sort of a little sort of 18th century, you know, the bit, and she wants to leave your mind. And so got this little piano going, so playing sort of one of those annoying pseudo sort of classical things. So even in that garaginess, I try and introduce a bit of schizophrenia of, like, when it turns into the chorus, and the voice becomes one of those voices. So it's a sort of an Englishman at the end of the pier, the one the Beatles had and the Rolling Stones, like, on with the show, good luck to you. You know, that voice, all us English people grew up with that. So you know, that music hall voice. So even within that garaginess, I try and get something else going on. Juxtaposition, that's what I do. Juxtaposing ridiculous things. Yes, Mary Shelley was watching her fucking telly. And then the songs all change and warp. It's like you've got a liquid idea there. It's like the hypnagogic realm when you're falling asleep, and ideas, they come to you and then they change and mutate, and your mother turns into your sister, turns into your teacher, turns into your girlfriend, turns into a child, turns into something else. And you just go, oh, you don't sort of stop it and go, what's going on? You know, so I've let my songs be like that. They're liquid, and and all the people change and move, and the music sort of all shifting around and has juxtaposition of things you wouldn't think would be in there. You know, I'm not Foreigner. I'm not fucking, you know, I'm not Journey, or, you know, that's like, baby, and then everything in that song is about baby, and the guitars are, I'm like, bring in all this different stuff, bring in the sort of Eastern sounds, and bring in ancient things, and bring in sort of suddenly raw, you know, dissonant things, like have it all in there. Let the song speed up and slow down and fall apart and recoalesce. Don't, you know, music doesn't, I don't like what happened in the 80s, where everything became really, you know, like as epitomized by all those new wave sort of bands, where everything was got the drum machine and you know, that was, and modern music these days, the music my kids probably listen to, all tuned and quantized and all that. I hate that. That's the antithesis of what I think music should be. I think music should be living, breathing, changing, stumbling, triumphant, fall down in despair, rise up again. It should go through, and if in one song you can take someone through every gamut of every emotion, like the Beatles used to, or Bowie used to, you know, just within 3 minutes, people go on a real ride, instead of the other idea of everything starts perfect and ends up perfect and is perfect all the way through, and all the vocals are so ridiculously auto-tuned, and everything's, what's the point in that? I mean, well, that's, you know, that that there is a point in that, because it's very successful, and other people are. I said to my daughter, what does Kanye West actually do? And she said, he's a master at auto tuning. Well, there you go. He's a master at auto tuning. I'm a master at chaotic, sort of throw all this stuff into something and let it see where we are at. Yeah.
And that was one of the questions I was wondering. I mentioned it, you're a highly prolific songwriter. By the time we're done with this conversation, you'll probably have written a couple songs.
I have.
see, are you one of those guys who hears bass lines and lyrics in his sleep and wakes up and scribbles?
Always. I have I have two weird things going on in my mind. Every word I say or I hear conversations, so I sit on a bus, I see them all, like even when like a policeman's pulling me over and going, good evening, sir, any reason why you're speeding? I see it all in writing, like subtitles. And I have all my life. When my father, Stephen, what have you done here? You've broken my binoculars. I see it all as a real, Stephen, I'm ringing you up to tell you I don't want to date you anymore. You're a bastard. I see it all, whatever it is, everything it comes up in like, so when I'm listening on a bus, or when I'm listening to people talk, or whatever I'm doing, there's a little computer part of me, and always has been, is grabbing lines and chucking them into a folder so they can be recontextualized later. And then the other thing I have is a thing called semantic hyperpriming, which is one of the things, if you go to a psychiatrist and he says dog, and you say walk or bark or run, that's all right. But if you go to a psychiatrist and he says dog, and you say midnight or Venice or read or something, he goes, whoa, boy, this guy's a bit, like he's sort of making weird, he's making weird connections. But I've got that semantic hyperpriming, so my mind sort of connects up things that a normal person's mind wouldn't connect up, and that's no good unless you're a poet or a songwriter. And then you go, wow, I'm glad I've got this sort of what people would normally consider a disability, because my teachers didn't quite knock it all out of me, because I think children are like that, and they go down to the beach and they go, wow, and everything just washes over them, and so all the thoughts are kind of mingling. And then you go to school, and as soon as you get to school, they go, no, concentrate on this, do this, think this. When you see number two, you've got to blah, 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 blah. And you've come out of school and you've lost all this sort of, you've lost this ability to sort of connect everything up. Yeah. You've lost this notion of interconnectedness of everything. But that they didn't quite do the job on me, and I escaped. And then, of course, I discovered marijuana, which brought it all back again. So now I smoke a joint and all that stuff happens again. I'm like, whoa. And like this, it never fails to do it. And the 2,000 songs I've written, I smoke a joint and pick up a guitar. I remember Mark Bolan said he strums a C chord and he can hear a universe of possibilities. That's how it is for me. I strum the C chord. I get a one word I might have heard on a bus, and bang, I'm away. And I never dry up. I never run out of ideas. I do songwriting workshops, and people say, what happens when you have a writer's block? And I say, I don't have writer's blocks. I don't allow it. I won't even torture myself with that idea that I could have a writer's block. I'm a writer, and I write, and I'll write whenever I fucking want. If I'm not going to wait for any particular point in time. I'm always writing. I'm always creating. My mind, even at the worst time, is always ticking over. Like if I collapse in the street and the man bending over me has an interesting pair of glasses, somewhere in my mind I'll be going, the man with the maroon horned rimmed glasses bent over me with a concerned look, and it'll all be put back in there, and then sometime when I'm ready I can bring it back out again. But that's the way my mind works. It doesn't make necessary for a very good guy for changing light bulbs and going and doing the shopping, because someone sends me out for avocados and I'll come back with a spotted beach ball because, I go, I thought, I sort of, but for being a songwriter and being creative, my sort of madness, once harnessed, is very good. I imagine if I hadn't harnessed it and I wasn't being paid to be creative and stuff, I imagine I'd probably be deemed useless because I couldn't get a job. I've had, before I was a musician, I had a job and I was hopeless. I couldn't, the boss said, I don't mind, you don't do any work, you stop everyone else from doing work. So walking around talking to people about inane things.
See, this is what I'm worried about. I feel the same way. All I've ever done is broadcasting. And I worry if the world becomes something like the Road Warrior. I don't know how to grow stuff. I don't know how to build stuff. I'm pretty much screwed. So as long as the world doesn't head towards an apocalypse, I think people like you will be okay.
Well, thank you. And you. Let's hope we survive this. They're squeezing the world. They're trying to get rid of people, but they always are. Whenever you read, they have these pogroms and or they have these purges. They always, we're getting rid of these people, different races and different this, and then they always say, and the writers and the intellectuals are always thrown in with that lump of whoever else they're trying to get. Like, let's make marijuana illegal in whatever it was, the Anslinger in the 1910s, because we could disenfranchise the black people, the Jewish people, the poor people, and the Chinese people, and whoever else. And then at the end of that list comes, and the writers and the intellectuals and the communists. We can take them all down in one go. So obviously, the powers that be, they don't really like writers and intellectuals and artists, and they never have. And Hitler was throwing them all in jail, and we imagine that. I know certainly on out the Australian government and probably American government looking after musicians and artists and intellectuals during COVID is way down on their list. Like if the bank collapses, they'll give you all the money you want. But if dear Mr. Trump, I'm a singer and I can't earn a living anymore, he's going to fucking laugh at that. He's going to go, get a real job.
So you have no writer's block. Your solo career has been very busy. The church has been staying active. Man, Woman, Life, Death, Infinity a few years ago. Another Century to me from that album is as good as the band's ever sounded. That's one I can't get enough of.
I reckon when we wrote that song, I thought, this is as good as anything we could ever. No one could possibly expect a band who's been together for whatever it was, 37 years, to come up with something as good as that. And that was a really, really good song. And I had a lot of arguments with other people in the band to get that song the way that it is. And I cared about that song so much that I almost let the rest of the album, you do whatever you like with the rest of the album. This song here, and it's going to be the first song, I really wanted that one. And I was so very frustrating for the other guys. I'm going, I want this French sound. And they're like, what? You imagine going to an engineer who's sitting there and he's got, Steve, what do you want? Treble, bass, reverb. I'm going, no, I want the French sound. And he's going, yeah, well, I don't have a French button here. Tell me how to do that. I go, sort of like what I wanted. That, have you ever heard that song by Serge Gainsbourg and Jane Birkin, Je t'aime, et moi non plus? Have you heard that?
Yes.
Da 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 da. Je t'aime, je t'aime. And I wanted the song and everything on that song to sound like that. Sounded like it'd been written by some French people for sort of an erotic movie or something. And it was very hard to get it like that because I sort of had this sound in my head, and we really fought and argued. And by the time I fought and argued for that song, I'd used up all my fighting and arguments, and the rest of the album I didn't think was as good as that. But that one song, you're right. I'm glad you mentioned that. It's a colossus of a song. It really is.
Isn't it funny how some songs come to life? I mean, there's that song, And to throw it all the way back to Starfish, Under the Milky Way was a last minute thing, right?
Under the Milky Way, Under the Milky Way was a song no one was really that interested in, and including me, and including the person I wrote it with. We wrote it, and in those days I was writing 10 songs a week, and I put them all on a cassette, and I'd give them to whoever was interested, and people would consider them. And luckily, our manager, we had this guy, a New York guy. It was probably one of the only good things he ever did. He spotted that song amongst all the other songs. He spotted it, and he said, that song's going to be on this album. And then another a good thing was he was also, it was a bit of a conflict of interest, but he was managing one of the producers, Waddy Wachtel. So he wasn't just managing the band, he managed one of the guys who producing. He'd bring up Waddy and go, where's that song I like, Waddy? Don't try and not put it on the album. And so by hook or by crook, the song got on the album. Nobody really liked it or cared about it or thought about it much. It was just sort of an afterthought. And then Clive Davis came in and went, that one's the hit. And he walked out, and all the guys walked out and went, that's a hit, that's a hit, that's a hit, that's a hit, that's a hit. As they walked out, shook my hand, and then because they said it would be a hit, they made it a hit. I mean, there was no way. Clive Davis put everything into that and went, this song's going to be a hit. And he went to everybody in the company and said, this song's going to be a hit. And everybody in the company made it a hit. And then after it was a hit, everybody involved sort of reconsidered they sort of reinvented the history of how, we always knew, I love, that, we love that song, right? No, they didn't. Nobody did, and I didn't either. I didn't even know. When I wrote it, when we recorded, I didn't know it was a hit until it was a hit. And then I was going, wow, I wrote a hit. But it was just an accident, really.
So a couple of years ago, the church was in Chicago, Lincoln Hall, celebrating 30 years of Starfish. Did COVID rob us of a 30-year anniversary tour for Gold Afternoon Fix? 40. So we formed in 1980. And this would have been, COVID robbed the whole world. We were touring Europe. We were having a church convention in London, like a Star Trek convention, only it's a church convention where people get together and go, this was my favorite thing, and this guy was my favorite member, and this and blah, blah, blah. And then we were going to do this big tour of Australia, probably getting close to it now, our 40th anniversary. But that obviously ain't happening. And not only that, but we lost the final founding member of the church, Peter Koppes, due to musical and personal differences. He left. So it's really just me. And Tim Poles, who's sort of been in the band since 1993. It's incredible the amounts of time we're talking in. When I first started getting in bands, if you were in a band for 2 weeks, you were considered a veteran. Like, we've had this band for 2 weeks, and no one's left. But so 40 years later, it's just me. I feel like the church has amassed this body of work. I have written most of it, or co-written huge chunks, and I felt disinclined to stop having the band as my trademark and my vehicle to play all this music. And I've got some great players on board, and we intend to, if COVID ever goes away, we intend to carry on, playing this huge, and we've got a brand new album with the new lineup. We intend to carry on, I guess, awesome, until I fall off my perch, which surely can't be that far off, because I can't just stop doing it. I can't imagine you could.
And it means something to people. It's gone beyond. It's funny, and I'm always amazed by this. I started out a young guy forming a band. I'm 24. I want to have hits. I want to meet girls. I want to take drugs. I want to go to America and stay in a hotel. Was I thinking about, I want to make something that'd be meaningful for people for the rest of their lives and be the soundtrack of their life and sort of help them over the death of their budgerigar and their, all of this sort of whatever it is. But that's what it has become. And
Sure.
so strangely enough, I feel a sort of a duty to carry on with this, because for some people, we're like the Beatles and Bowie are to me. That is what the church are to people around the world, not billions and billions, but thousands and thousands and thousands of people.
Sure.
The church are their favorite thing. Under the Milky Way means a lot to them, and they've all got their favorite albums and favorite. We've made like 40 records or something. So there's a lot of music there people want to hear, and it's sort of gone beyond individuals. It's an idea now. It's an idea and it's a body of work. And I've said to them, if I do die and if there is a demand, please get another singer and keep going. It's like, it's like the Eagles are doing, as they die off, the children join in and play. Like one could imagine in 50 years time, the Eagles' grandchildren are going around the world playing Hotel California and Take It Easy. And so they should. It's like, why should it, if it's great music and stuff, why should it end when the individual's lives end or the individuals concerned have had enough? The guys, Marty Wilson Piper and Peter Koppers, Marty played with us for 33 years. Peter did 37 years. People can understand that they've had enough. They don't want to do it anymore. They want to go and do something else. But the band has to keep going. And that's why I decide to keep on going with this, and I will keep on going.
It's interesting. You talk about how the band means so much to different people and has taken on this bigger, broader life. I mean, I look at you, Steve, and I'm transported to 1990. First time I see the first time I saw the church. You played Navy Pier in Chicago. It was the Gold Afternoon Fix tour, and I vividly remember Essence from that show. It's interesting how things kind of stir in your memory and kick back up at certain times. And right now, I'm that kid at Navy Pier watching you play.
There you go. And it's people like, okay, so when I put on a Beatles record, a Bowie record, or Mark Bolan or Bob Dylan, I become that kid again. When I hear those songs I first took in when I was a kid, and it's like a rejuvenation process. And the music can access memories and feelings you thought you'd forgotten. I remember once when I was about 26, I went in my parents' bathroom and opened up their medicine cabinet, and in there I found a small rolled up tube of pimple cream that I used to use when I was 16. And I opened up the tube and I smelt it, and memories just rushed back into me from just the smell of this pimple cream of, my first kiss and my first date and playing football and riding my bike, and bang, it all came back. And music does that as well. And people enjoy that feeling. And it's a public service. It's a worthy thing to do. If I can come on stage and play those songs that you liked at the Navy Pier, and suddenly you get a flood of feel-good chemicals and memories, and you remember your old bedroom, and you remember your girlfriend. I think it's a worthy and lovely thing to do, and I don't want to stop doing it. But it's something, as I said, something I never anticipated. I just wanted to be cool. I thought I was play for a couple of years and I'd be gone, and I'd be sitting in a house in Switzerland having a blood transfusion and all that sort of thing. But it wasn't to be. And now I sort of have I'm semi-bound to this obligation to go around playing this music so people can have that experience, whatever it is. And it's not just nostalgia either, because as you say, you really like Another Century, and that's got nothing to do with nostalgia. It's right. So it's the church is a sort of an ongoing thing, and unapologetically, it's an ongoing thing. And I will do the church. I don't care who comes and goes. I will carry on with the church, even if it's just me in the end. I will carry on with the church until the day I drop, or I can no longer do it. Jumping
a couple years ahead of Gold Afternoon Fix, Priest equals Aura I think is probably one of the church's master strokes. I mean, I still think songs like Ripple and Feel hold up. Was that when things got bad for you with drugs, with heroin?
Yeah, it's a strange thing. I was in a strange place in my life. It was 1991. Gold Afternoon Fix only sold 350,000 copies. My oh my, how you like to only sell 350,000 copies. I remember, just to divert, I remember there was this band called Winger, and Winger put out an album and they broke up because it only sold 400,000 copies. And they went, that's it. These days, imagine these days if you could sell 400,000 copies. Anyway, so Gold Afternoon Fix only had sold 350,000 copies, and the tour had been the band was sort of morally sort of falling apart. Our drummer left. I got into heroin. I had a couple of twins on the way that I wasn't sure if I was going to be a good dad. And I discovered opium and heroin at the same time. And when we started making Gold Priest Equals Aura, I was still in the honeymoon phase with that drug. Mm-hmm. Heroin and opium are terrible drugs, but there is a brief period, like maybe before you're completely an addict and you've used up all your money and become a rat bag running around hocking your guitars and stuff. There's this brief period where, just like marijuana, it informed me, and I thought, I've got to capture this feeling. I've got to capture this feeling of the way it makes me feel. Basically, and this is no real excuse, every drug I ever took, and I took them all, no one has taken more diverse. I've had every fucking drug you can think of. Maybe not some of those brand new weird modern bath salts and stuff. I haven't done that. But
yeah,
all
these kids today and their new drugs, forget it.
Yeah. Not those new drugs, but those old style drugs. I was taking them because I found in marijuana, and then I found in LSD and mushrooms and stuff, this endless sort of inspiration. And when I first encountered opium and heroin, I felt, I want to get this feeling into my music. I want to get this slow, sickly sweet heaviness, and also I want the free association that it would give me when I go into that, when you see the junkie go boom and he nods off, but behind his eyes he's having these dreams and revelations. I wanted to capture that, and Priest Equals Aura was when everything was right, before I was a complete imbecilic junkie, doing all the junkie tricks that you got to do for that brief time. And luckily that was when we were making the album. It illuminated me with the endless possibility of the sort of trying to capture this opiated feeling. So that's what it was. And I think we had JD Doherty from Patti Smith joined on drums and gave us a whole new lease of life. And the band were in a great stage where suddenly after the Starfish album, everybody was in the band was a fucking superstar, and nobody wanted to listen to everyone else. And for a while with Priest Equals Aura, the other guys were sort of detached enough to have fun with it and leave it alone. And sort of they sort of did their parts, and we wrote some beautiful music. We had great time writing that album. Every song we wrote was just wow. They were just falling out. We were laughing. I remember Marty stood there one day and said, well, we need another song. I said, we do. I said, what are you going to call it? He said, I'm going to call this song Ripple. I said, all right, give me a chord progression. And he went, jung 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 jung. And then this band goes boom boom, and we all join in, and I start singing, and bang, the song just sort of appears out of nowhere, like a manna from heaven. So we're on an absolute creative roll, and we had a great producer, and we had a good budget, and we made this album. I think it's a masterpiece.
It's
It's
so
a
good.
widescreen masterpiece that sort of tackles every major thing in Western civilization. Unfortunately for us, grunge came along at the same time, and suddenly we were completely, like, you know, when your stock gets wiped off the market, that's what happened to us. And there was no, grunge came along. I remember turning up at an airport, and there was this girl there from Arista. I'm going, hey, are you here to pick me up? And she said, no, I'm not here to pick you up. You can get a taxi wherever you're going. I'm here to pick this guy up. And it was Kurt Cobain, who had just sort of, I think I'd only just heard of him, just as Teen Spirit was climbing up the charts. And there was this guy sort of, you know, in his flannel shirt and his hair all dyed and sort of looking out of it and sort of unshaved and stuff. And that was it, you know. And then the Pearl Jam and all the rest of them came along, and they sort of wiped us right off the map. If only we'd come up with Priest Equals Aura. Plus, we had kind of ruined it for ourselves with Gold Afternoon Fix. Gold Afternoon Fix was not the album we should have delivered after Starfish. We should have delivered Priest Equals Aura, and it would have been a whole other story. But we kind of hesitated, and we didn't make hay while the sun was shining. We made a kind of an inferior record. Was a lot of arguments and stuff.
So wait, you perceive Gold Afternoon Fix as an inferior record?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely an inferior record to Starfish, and undoubtedly an inferior record to Priest Equals Aura. If Priest Equals Aura had come after Starfish when people were really listening, but I think we sort of, it's like, I always use this analogy. You know, when you watch wrestling and the guy gets the guy you're cheering for gets the bad guy down on the mat. He's ready to drop on him and deliver the thing, and then some people call out in the audience, so he leaves that guy lying there, and he gets up and walks around and argues, hey, what are you fucking, I'm the champion, what are you doing here? And while he's walking around boasting, the other guy makes a recovery and comes back up and grabs him and puts him down. That's what happened to us. That's what happened to the church. We didn't seize our moment. We didn't do the drop and knock out the world and release Priest Equals Aura. We fucked around with Gold Afternoon Fix. And by the time it was ready to do the drop with Priest Equals Aura, the wrestling match had moved somewhere else, and we were just wrestling with ourselves. And the record company didn't know what to make of it. And I was getting into heroin, and the band was sort of, the band had been really united up until that point. We never liked each other, but we hated everything that was going on outside, and we thought we were worth something. So when we weren't doing very well, it kind of formed, we were very tight, and we had a kind of armor because we were used to not doing well. As soon as we did really well, everyone in the band, including me, everyone got a really big ego and sort of didn't really want to work, and sort of everything became harder then. And Gold Afternoon Fix is the result of people not really caring or thinking, oh, that'll do, which wasn't the case with Starfish when we were still really hungry for success. And as I say, by the time it had come back round, it was too late.
Here's why I like the church. Your self-described inferior product, to me, still sounds great. I still love Terra Novocaine. I still love Essence and You're So Beautiful, and of course Metropolis. I mean, there's your like low moment is still something that I find energizing and wonderful. So I think that speaks volumes about the band.
I think the songs were all right, but I think the way the record was made and the sort of the cavalierness of everyone in the band, myself included, we weren't trying as hard as we had done up until then. And some of the songs, Terra Novocaine's an okay song, but I don't know, the whole album sort of leaves people less than, it doesn't quite do what Starfish did.
Sure. And speaking of Starfish, I dare people to find a better song to drive late at night to playing super loud than Reptile. That's like, turn it up super loud, dark highway. Let's hit it. Let's do this.
Yeah.
That just works.
Go for it.
So, all right. Again, the new solo album, it's raw. It's wonderful. It's not the church. It is Steve Kilbey just banging something out in 3 days, and it's awesome. It's 11 women. I love the way this sounds. You keep doing it. I keep stunning.
Doing it. That's what I do. That's what I do. I keep doing it, and I will never stop, and I will never dry up. I've got my guitar right here.
Of course you do.
And I've already written another album, which I'm recording next week for the one after 11 women. So I'm ready to go, and I'm knocking out songs, even if nobody cares. I'm just doing it.
Well, we care. And how lucky are people who are just discovering you in the church now? They've got months worth of discovery ahead of them.
I know. It's like in 1972, I woke up one day and I went, fuck, I've never really investigated Pink Floyd. And then suddenly you go down the record shop and realize there's like 8 Pink Floyd records to collect. So someone waking up today and going, the church, I've got like 40 records that I've done outside the church, and the church have done like 40 records. And then there's the other guys' records. You've got a lot of collecting, you'll never be able to collect them all. There will always be that, there was a record that was in a tin can, like a film, or there was a cassette that was given away in like a cup, or there was a flexi disc that some magazine, you'll never be able to find them all. So it's not like discovering someone and, you bang and get it all. And a lot of it isn't on iTunes or Spotify. So you're off on if you discover the church, wake up this morning, discover us, you've got a real quest on your hands if you want to be a completist. Yeah.
You do. It is a Lord of the Rings quest.
It is the Lord of the Rings. Yeah.
All right.
And I don't know if I'm Gandalf or Gollum.
You're Gandalf, clearly. It's
I'm
the gray.
Gandalf.
It's the gray.
You shall not pass.
It's the gray. It makes you wiser.
The gray beard.
And wizard like.
Get my staff is my bass guitar.
Exactly. All right. 11 Women is the new album. You are Steve Kilbey. You are a treasure. I'm glad you're healthy and well. We
thank you, mate.
I'm kind of wrapping this up, but I also want to say we talked about your heroin years, but we should all look as good as you do at your age. I mean, you seem like
I'm 66,
Yes. Like,
yeah.
For someone who did all the drugs, self-admittedly.
I know.
Fast forward to today.
Okay, let me say what I didn't do. I didn't smoke cigs. I didn't drink much alcohol. I still don't. I've never been drunk in my whole life. I have one drink and I stop. So no cigarettes, hardly any alcohol. And I'm a vegetarian. I don't eat meat. And I swim and I do yoga. And so for all those nasty drugs I did, and sometimes still do, I sort of, I offset that with other things. I sort of offset it. So people shouldn't look at me and go, oh, it's okay to do all that stuff. I look at Steve Tyler. I sat behind Steve Tyler on a plane. How the hell, he's got this long, thick, girly hair, and I know he's had a few facelifts, but he's still slim, and he sort of got off the plane, he's sort of bouncing along, and that guy's in his 70s. And he was the biggest fucking drug addict in the world. So one has to conclude there are worse things than taking drugs. That isn't the only thing in the equation. But thank you for your sentiment. I'm glad I'm still around.
Likewise, and since the interview's over, I've been waiting all day to say it. We're done. Go now.
Okay, mate.
You've been set free.
Okay. Thanks for having me.